There's a lot on my mind. There's so much that's happening in our world, and fighting for democracy is number one. And we can do it. All we need to do is change the rules. They're already looking at the federal government and saying, my God, it's so dysfunctional. Who do we have to get as the next Speaker of the House? The only way they can get someone who's moderately pragmatic is to change the rules. But I got a better way. If you're going to change the rules, change the way the House is structured. In 1938, they passed the law that said you should cap the number of people in the House of Representatives. Well, they're capped. And if you did it the way I'm suggesting, they'd still be capped, and they'd still probably have the same number of people. All you got to do is structure the House the way the Founding Fathers intended. One delegate per every million folks. You got less than 1 million folks in your state, you get one delegate. More than 1 million, you get as many delegates as you have population. That would be fair. 2 senators from every state, independent of population. And we'd get rid of minority rule. That would be a start. We need a strong majority. And then also, perhaps, money wouldn't be ruling so much, because the House would be structured according to population. Our vote would actually count. And who we send to government would also count. And a lot of us would not be frustrated with government. We'd see some action, perhaps, because there would be fair representation. Think about it. The only way to have a strong democracy is to have a democracy that reflects the will of all the people. No more democracy based on moneyed interests. No more democracy based on influence and special interests. When you look at the Bible and what the Bible tells you not to covet another's wife or covet another family's wealth, what do you think happened in the early 20s and is probably still happening today? Townspeople in a small town in Oklahoma, they were part of a conspiracy to wipe out the Osage Indians who found oil on their property. It was a terrible murder, the killers of the Flower Moon. It's now in a film brought to us by Martin Scorsese. Before that, it was an excellent book about not only the murders of the small Osage community, but the beginnings of the FBI and under J. Edgar Hoover in the 1920s. And the FBI really did a great job in solving the murders. And you'll be amazed at what happened. Contemporaneous to that was the massacre of the African American population in Tulsa, Oklahoma. They too had a lot of money, and they were wiped out. The money is too pervasive in our society. It doesn't allow us to have good customer service. I didn't need to read The Economist to find out that if they gave us more people in customer services and less chatbots, guess what? I'd have a better experience, and the people who I call would have a better experience. No joke. Enough is enough with taking people out of the job market. Sure, I saw that jobs went up somewhat this month, 300 and some odd. But I remember at the beginning of the recession in 2008, they said that we'd have to have many years of 450,000 folks being employed a month to overcome the effects of the recession. I don't have short-term or long-term memory loss. I remember those facts. And we have never gotten there yet. Kaiser Permanente is on strike. For those of you who are not familiar with the healthcare provider, Kaiser is known to be one of the best in the country and one of the biggest. 75,000 people are on strike. Nurses, technicians, physicians. Why? Because they have no standard of care. They're understaffed. And they're not alone. Go to any hospital. Go to any nursing home. Go to any rehab establishment. You won't see the adequate staffing that's needed. 2016, when I was in rehab for hip reconstruction, there was one nurse on a floor for 20 people and sometimes only one aide. People didn't even want to come to work there because they knew that they would feel dreadful if they couldn't take care of people, and they knew it was going to be impossible. There were maybe 5 people on a floor that were ambulatory, could walk around like I did, didn't need too much assistance, but most folks were bedridden, and they needed intensive care, and there were no staff, no aides, no nurses, and I never saw a doctor. 5 floors like that. Time has come to improve healthcare in America, to have standards of care, to start putting people back into the medical centers where they're needed. 450,000 nurses have left healthcare. They say we're going to have a shortage of 124,000 physicians over the next couple of years. I'm not surprised. Every med school that I know of takes maybe 100 to 110 kids. And it's really super competitive. So how many physicians are we graduating a year? 15, 20,000? They're going to be overburdened. And who's going to dictate their salaries? The insurance companies. It's time to switch things around and have a balance. Money cannot evidently buy us a democracy. It seems to do just the opposite. You get a lot of money in the system, and what happens? You get the influencers in power. You don't get representation of the people. And we should. Same thing happens in pharmaceuticals. GSK, GlaxoSmithKline. They have a vaccine for tuberculosis that's ready for testing and rollout. The results are awesome. Did GlaxoSmithKline pursue that? No way, because who would need to eradicate TB? Not wealthy folks, folks in poor nations. They elected not to pass the TB vaccine. Instead, they went ahead with Shingrix. Well, that was a moneymaker. And for those of you who are not familiar with Shingrix, Shingrix cures shingles. If you've had chickenpox, which is a herpes virus, when you're older, or really any age, you could get shingles. Shingles is a disease that affects the nerve endings in our bodies. Could have a rash, but you can be in a hell of a lot of pain. GlaxoSmithKline made $14 billion on selling Shingrix to the world and to the world's elderly, those of us who are 65 and up. I know my first shingles vaccine cost me personally out of pocket $200 because the government and my health care did not cover it until this year. So that's a moneymaker. Why go through with eradicating TB or HIV? Who's going to buy that vaccine? You're going to be giving it away to countries that need it and may not be able to pay. And I say enough is enough. They call this late stage capitalism. And you know what? They're right. It is late stage capitalism because nobody is functioning to efficient productivity and efficient innovation. It ain't happening at all. I don't care whether my dishwasher is white or gray. I don't care if you color my air conditioning unit. What I do care about is you make it more efficient, quieter, and less of a carbon footprint. Sure, that takes money, but you know what? You'd make more money in the end. I keep telling everyone, you go to renewable energy, you need twice the amount of people, and it pays twice to 4 times the amount that you get when you're servicing the oil industry, the petrochemical industry, the coal industry. And not only that, the health benefits are tremendous. And the benefits to our planet, well, 43 million folks, children only, that UNESCO is looking at because of weather extremes. What do you think's going to happen next year and the year after that? If we don't go into new technologies, how many people are going to be in diaspora? I remember in total, before the pandemic, there were 100 million people in diaspora because of wars and because of famine. Now, with the added weather extremes, how many more will we see trying to cross borders? Isn't it cheaper to work on the science and the innovation to stop the migrations, to help other countries plant enough drought-resistant crops so that they can survive and thrive where they live, and most likely where they prefer to live? When Lula cracked down on deforestation of the Amazon, he did a really fine job. It's still a net carbon emitter because of Bolsonaro's policies, but at least it's thriving again, and it has a chance. Well, we got to do this all over. Everyone says there's American ingenuity, and American ingenuity will pull us out of our problems. Well, I think if we stop fighting over the money, we stop seeing who can get to the most profits in the least amount of time, and we start looking at how we save the world instead, we will indeed save the world. We'll have a better quality of life, and those folks who participated will make a lot of money besides. No need to covet what somebody else has, because you never know, when you really hear their stories, what else they're suffering from. My dad always used to say, always make what you need. Don't look in the other guy's pocket. And maybe that's something that more people should learn about. Thank you for listening, and have a splendid day.